So my home is in Cairo, Egypt, and one of the things that is very critical to my experience there is the Nile River. It's right in front of my house, and it's something that I woke up to every single day. It's something that I've attached myself to a lot, and so when I think of my home, it's one of the most important things that I think of. Living in an apartment with my family as well, it's a very intimate affair. But when I think about it the most, I think about the busy streets, the people that are always around, and the community that you build within Egypt is something that I connected a lot with. And when I think of my house, or I think of my home, that they represent that more than any physical attribute. So my name is Omar Barakat. I'm from Alexandria, Egypt, which is more on the Mediterranean. I have a family of 6, 3 brothers younger than me. Egypt is a very fast-moving, just chaotic experience, largely because of, a lack of governmental existence really in most parts that I was at, and so I think chaos is like something that you incorporate into your childhood. Egypt has always suffered from a split in classes. Instead of there being kind of like a middle class like you have here in America, it's more like you have people working class and people that are barely kind of making it through, and then people who are well-to-do and kind of charting their own course. And this 2 Egypts that you end up experiencing was a catalyst for ultimately what would later become the Egyptian Revolution. Basically, there was this man who had recorded the police assaulting somebody, and then they ended up beating that kid to death, and basically implying that he was, a drug dealer of sorts, even though he was like an upstanding kid in general. And so, for the first time ever, I think people started using Facebook as a way to arrange protests. And on January 25th, which is the police day off, they went out and protested, and it was met with extreme force, which then triggered on the 28th what was called the Friday of Anger, and that's when the revolution really exploded from there. Thinking back on what it was like, it was almost like people call it a flash in a pan. The actual protesting didn't last beyond I think 3 weeks or so, but in those 3 weeks a lot of destabilizing forces had come out. Me at the time, being a 12-year-old, was a very formative experience. I understood a lot of my concepts to do with life and the concepts of what it means to be a society because of that. Because once you have the systematic part fall apart, all that's left is the people, and then you have to manage that, right? And so for me, I still went to school. I still had to deal with a lot of stuff. For our own protection, we had a bunch of people, a bunch of these little kids in my class, come with knives and stuff so that we would be able to defend ourselves, because there was just there was nothing there during the revolution. And I think once I figured that out, and once Mubarak, who was the dictator at the time, pulled the police off the streets at one point, I saw our community, instead of fall apart like you'd think it would, it came together, and we started setting up civilian checkpoints. And right after school or towards the night, me and my brother Yusuf, who was only a year younger than me, we would join the men in the street. We'd make this fire pit in the middle of the road, and we'd basically ourselves be able to protect the neighborhood. And that was a very surreal experience for me. I think you're sitting with these full adults that are talking about securing this area and securing that area, and they're carrying Uzis and harpoon guns, which is an astounding sight for sure for a child. But it grew in me a sense of pride, I think, in my people and in humanity in general. I used to go to a lot of these protests as a child with my parents. I wasn't on the sidelines. I was in the middle of it. And one of the moments I remember was when we went to Tahrir Square, which is kind of the center of all protesting in Egypt and is in the middle of Cairo. When I set foot there the first time, and there was music being played, there were people chanting, there was like so much going on, and I saw Egypt for what it could become as opposed to for what it is. And even though it has not become that yet, that image that I have in my mind is what drives me still to this day, to be able to realize this essence that I was able to see with my own eyes. Because people have always around me, especially during the revolution, have always been advocates for freedom and for justice and for societal equality, I think these are principles that I hold myself to and hold others to, and hope to be able to emulate with whatever I end up doing. So the revolution ends 2011, and obviously later Mohamed Morsi is overthrown by a military coup in 2013. And so basically from 2013 to 2016, which is when I came here, it was just, I guess in a sense, me trying to stabilize my situation. At the summer of 2016, Egypt was going through this area of like incredible inflation. I think it was pushed by a lot of things, but partially because the government was taking a lot of loans, and a lot of these covenants that are on the loans were requiring maneuvers that were increasing inflation. Basically, the Egyptian pound went from being £6 to $1 to £22 to $1 in a matter of a couple of months. And I think my family, or my father at least, saw it as it's a now or never moment. We either leave now or we're just gonna stay here. And so I come back one day, I remember, and my father tells me, hey, we're leaving for the United States. And it was a very shocking reality for me, I think. The folding of it all in such a small time frame, I think was very devastating for me initially. Sure, America holds so much promise, but at the same time, I was losing this life that I had only known for my whole life. And when it came to friends and family and everything, I don't know, it was a very shocking transition. And between the day my father told me to the day we left, it was exactly 30 days. And so we had to move quick, and I had to leave everything behind and come to the United States in the hopes that we would be able to kind of start anew here. Carrying Egypt for me, still to this day, it's something that I focus on a lot, but it's a very difficult thing to do. I think you try so hard to find your space, to have meaning in the middle of all that's going on in America, that you kind of almost try to lose it so that you can become part of the collective. But something that I've done is that I wore me being Egyptian on my sleeve, and I wear it with a lot of pride. I say it in every conversation, in every interview I ever had. I always start off with the fact that I'm from Egypt, and that's something that I revere so strongly, and I carry with me everywhere that I go. I had struggled in the first years of coming to the United States I feel like I was being torn apart in a way, where I was like, part of me was still in Egypt and part of me was trying to be here. I think I've been able to resolve that in knowing that I will never become that person that I was back home. But I found newfound excitement in learning who this new person, this amalgamation of the West and kind of Africa together. So I've overcome adversity through my adaptability. I think life has always eluded me in the sense that I've always been worried and scared of the fact that I have such little control over what happens to me, as I've kind of chronicled a little bit, from the revolution to coming here and everything in between. And still to this day, I keep coming into obstacles, and almost all of them have nothing to do with me or my decisions. And so that used to make me feel very powerless, but I've been able to kind of turn that around and gain a lot of power in knowing that I don't have control, and finding a lot of peace in that, because you focus on what you can do, and then everything else is irrelevant because you have no power over it. And I think that perspective, coupled with the fact that I'm not married to a particular outcome, and that whatever happens, and I'm only responsible for the effort, but the result is in some other hand is not mine. And so I think by holding that perspective, I've been able to overcome a lot, because I don't pay it much due. I take it in, deal with it, but then I keep it moving, because otherwise you get bogged down with life, and you get it's like you become Atlas in a sense, and you're carrying this entire sky over your shoulders. The other side to it is also having a very strong support system. I think whether that's friends or family, having people around you that you can confide in, and that you can use as a draw for when things are tough and when things are great, I think is incredibly important. We are very social creatures, and being able to cultivate that and find trust and love from people there's nothing that can ever parallel that for anybody. Because I've seen so much, I want to do so much to help. I think in the chant that I always remember from my time in the revolution is عيش حرية عدالة اجتماعية, which is Arabic for bread, freedom, and social justice. And those are kind of cornerstones of society that I try to, as much as I can, bring about in Egypt. And everything that I have been doing to this day, from my education to my extracurriculars to my career, I've always been working towards this crescendo of being able to give back to my country and be able to pay back the due that I have, because I see the privileges that I've been given and the opportunities that I've been given. Despite everything that has occurred, I am an incredibly privileged human being, and it is my responsibility to be able to use that privilege to be able to help those that have not been so lucky. And so that keeps me going, because I know that I have job to do, and I know that I have work to do. And so no matter how bad it gets, I focus on the mission and I keep it going, so that hopefully one day I can bring about some kind of good and bring purpose to kind of all this journey that I've been on. Jabal ما يهز ريح, which is a mountain unshaken by wind.